to Mao. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is one back. Welcome up. Let's Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Matt Moreno. Matt, the headline we're going to be talking about today, I'm going to be honest, is one that excites me. Trea Turner open to extension talks with the Los Angeles Dodgers. What can you tell us about the quotes from Turner's side and where this might lead?
Yeah, well, I think first it's important to note that Trea did make these comments before Freddie Freeman was officially signed, and we'll get into that. Probably has kind of, maybe changed the calculus a little bit for the Dodgers. But he acknowledged that he's willing to talk. He was willing to discuss a contract extension either during spring training or during the regular season. He said, quote, "I feel like I can compartmentalize. I can have a talk if somebody wants to have a talk." So, that's different from Corey Seager last year, who said, once the regular season started, he shut down pretty much any talks of a contract extension. I think his agent, Big Scott Boras, we all sort of anticipated he was going to go to the open market, short of the Dodgers maybe coming forward with, $400 million, which they weren't necessarily going to do. So Trea's open to it. I think it's noteworthy in the sense that there had been rumblings that when he was traded last year that he is an East Coast guy and wouldn't want to stay with the Dodgers. And there really hasn't been anything to sort of give that merit. So it's where things sort of stand with him. Yeah,
and the quotes I saw were like, hey, I value winning and I've enjoyed my time here. Like, there was nothing negative. And of course, there's no incentive for him to say this if it weren't true. Like, he could easily go the Seager route and what honestly a lot of people do, which is, if you want to sign me a new extension, let's talk before the season. If not, we'll talk at the end and we'll deal with free agency. Again, the qualifying offer is no longer a thing in this latest collective bargaining agreement. So keep in mind that, the Dodgers will not have really any leverage once it gets to free agency with a guy like Trea Turner. The question then becomes the priority level. You mentioned Freddie Freeman. The Dodgers signed Freeman to a big contract. $26, $27 million a year basically is what he will be getting. So the question is, do they have enough money left to sign Trea Turner? And the Kenley Jansen reports that came out, the Dodgers wanted to get under the $290 million limit before signing Jansen. They were not able to. The Braves made an offer. There they go. Kenley Jansen's now a Brave. The thing with Turner to remember as well is that he's in his final year of arbitration this year, and so his number is going to be far below sort of the market value for a guy of his stature. And so if they did want to sign him to an extension, it could potentially mess up his cap hit and increase his cap hit for this year, which sounds like something the Dodgers are not. But I want to sort of zoom out and have a bigger picture question for you, Matt, which is, how do you think Trea Turner's market will develop compared to a guy we're all familiar with in Corey Seager? Just this past year, he signs a 10-year, $320 million contract with the Texas Rangers. I'm curious where Turner's lands. Here's some key numbers. Trea Turner will be 2 years older than Corey Seager was when they hit free agency. Seager was 27. Trea will be 29 next year. The flip side to that is Trea Turner has been a much better, more valuable player than Corey Seager. Over the last 3 years, Trea Turner has accumulated 13.2 wins above replacement according to Fangraphs. Corey Seager was at just 8.8, so a pretty sizable gap between the two over the full 2019, the full 2021, and the shortened 2020 season. Turner has been more healthy of late. He missed 40 games in 2019. No other major absences dating back to 2018. Seager, on the other hand, missed 136 games in 2018. He missed 28 games in 2019. He missed 70 games last season. So as a starting point, 10 years, $325 million. Do you think Trea Turner does more or less on an average annual value than Corey Seager did?
I think he can beat the AAV that Seager got. I don't know if he'll get, though. I don't think he gets the 10 years, and I don't think he gets to $325 million.
Okay.
What I think will be interesting to see is Carlos Correa presumably will be back on the open market again, so he'll be kind of pitted against, another top-flight shortstop the way he just was this past offseason with Seager. Xander Bogaerts from the Red Sox, he could also be on the open market, so it could be sort of a repeat of what we just went through.
Yeah.
I think this contract that Seager got was sort of an exception because it was the Rangers. And I think the Rangers, and this is just me kind of speculating, I think they might have tried to – I think, they have the connection with Chris Woodward, obviously having been here with Seager when he was third base coach for the Dodgers. And I think they were also trying to angle themselves for Clayton Kershaw. Like, look, we got Corey Seager. We're improving the roster. You can come join us. We're going to contend. Obviously, Kershaw didn't necessarily see the Rangers as a contender because he said he came back to the Dodgers for that reason. So I don't know if, and then, the market never developed for Correa that way either. So I don't see Trey getting to those levels. But the AAV, I think he could potentially beat that.
Yeah, so if he were to get an 8-year deal, that would take him through the age 37 season, which is what Corey Seager just signed a deal. So I think something in that range could make some sense. As you said, maybe it's a $35 million average annual value. If you do the math, that'd be 8 for 280 versus 10 for 325. At those numbers, do you want the Dodgers to be a player? Is that I've said all along, I don't like the Corey Seager contract. Even if he had come back to the Dodgers and said, here's the table on the offer on the table, you match it, I'm a Dodger, I would have said no thanks, enjoy Texas. I think that contract is huge. I think it's too long. I think Seager's injury history scares me. Do you have concerns about signing Trea Turner for 8 years? Or if he brings you an 8-year, $270 million extension right now, do you put pen to paper?
Yeah, I'd have to really look at it. I mean, 8 years is a bit much. And what concerns me about Trey is, a significant element of his game is the speed threat. And that obviously, just like any other human, any of the great athletes, that will sort of diminish and drop off as he gets older. He obviously is capable of hitting for power and, contact and all that. So that presumably will stick. But, you won't necessarily get the stolen base threat. Is he somebody who's going to have to move off of shortstop at some point? Yep. So that would be probably my biggest concern with 8 years. To me, the actual value, the total dollars, and the AAV, I don't worry about that. I know obviously the team has to calculate it for luxury tax purposes and all that, and I can understand that. But so if you came to me, if he was willing to do 5 or 6 years, still at $280 million, I would say, okay, let's do that. But the years are what I would be most concerned with. And I think, another thing it is important to note, the qualifying offer technically could still be in play if the international draft isn't agreed to later this year. I think, though, the assumption is that the sides will sort of agree to that. But, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that at the end, because what if he said, hey, 5 years, $200 million extension is what Trea Turner wants? I think a lot of people would say, man, $40 million a year. But for a guy who, according to Fangraphs, led baseball in wins above replacement last year, and only 5 years, I'm with you. The concern is athleticism, and how does that decline as you get into your mid to late 30s? Nobody's expecting him to be stealing 30-plus bases, I don't think, as a 35, 36-year-old. But if you're going to give him 5 for 200, if he comes back and says, actually, I want 8 for 260, I mean, would you tack 3 years on at $20 million a year for a guy like Trea Turner? I don't think that's a crazy ask. And so, like you said, maybe you don't want those 3 at $20 million a year at the end, but it does even out the AAV over the course of the contract. And who knows, you do get a couple extra years out of him. So I'm a big pro Trea Turner guy. I would love to see him extended. The Dodgers do not have an obvious successor shortstop, Gavin Lux. They seem to be insistent upon moving him off of shortstop and making him sort of a more of a utility guy. We'll see if that changes this year. Obviously, I still believe in Lux the player, Lux the bat. I think people had concerns about him defensively at shortstop all along. So fans below, what would be an acceptable offer for you from the Dodgers to Trea Turner where you'd feel good about it and where you think Trea Turner might honestly sign for? Let us know in the comments below. That's Matt Moreno. My name's Jeff Spiegel. We appreciate you watching. This is DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com. As always, check out Dodger Blue 1958 on social media. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, rate, review there as well. And please subscribe, ring the notification bell here on YouTube. Also, we appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next time.